almost everybody on this stage is willing to admit is their favorite clean energy source. Many clean energy sources work together. We help make that conversation of working together include our favorite clean energy source, nuclear power. You are currently sitting in the Net Zero Nuclear Green Zone Pavilion here in the Energy Transition Hub. For those of you who have not been to COP before, the fact that we have a Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion here of this beauty and this generous size, yet a giant Korea hydro and nuclear power booth towers over us like a looming nuclear power plant. This is something that has never occurred. This is extraordinary. Several days ago, the presidency of COP hosted the first ever official Blue Zone event celebrating the role of nuclear energy and declaring it as essential for meeting net zero goals. This is, again, absolutely unprecedented. There's a lot of cynicism out there about everything. Pick a topic, there's cynicism. There's cynicism about COP as a waste of time. There's cynicism about advocacy as any kind of thing that can make a difference. I am incredibly proud to bring to you today a panel filled with people who have made small gestures, sometimes a lot of them, and occasionally some large gestures, and have fundamentally altered the way our world is going to end up in sometimes already now, sometimes 5 and 10 years. And we're seeing those results unfold. We also have something very interesting where we have, for those of you who don't know, Katie Hough is at the Department of Energy of the United States of America and is the Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy. And that is one of the most important functions in one of the biggest governments with the biggest nuclear fleet to direct how we can sustain that safely and build it into the future. And yet, she's here with us on a panel for youth advocacy. And it's not at all inappropriate, as you'll see. I think we're going to start with you, Katie. So you're older or younger for your position in the government?
I'm not the youth, but I am younger for an assistant secretary. You know, generally speaking, it is a very senior position. I started as the PDAS when I was 35. I'm now 37.
So for those of you who have been to youth events, there's a lot of programs here at COP where 35 is defined as the cutoff for youth. Meaning, Katie was put up for an extremely important, a vital government position, was appointed quite rapidly at the age that is the cutoff for coming to COP youth events. This is extraordinary because in nuclear plant terms, she's not even to her first relicensing period, but also because nuclear energy has a major age problem. Katie, could you explain?
Yeah, so, because of this sort of ebbs and flows of the, nuclear build-outs that we've done, in the United States, there's actually a bimodal distribution.
Bimodal?
Bimodal is sort of two modes, right? It's sort of a graph shaped like an M, where there's two hills and a valley. And this distribution of ages in the graduation ages of the people getting degrees in the United States, there were lots when nuclear first started, and then there was quite a dip. And just on the leading edge of the next hill is people like me, and everyone sort of 35 and under is on that next hill where there's a lot of young folks and there's quite a lot of folks, 55 and older. There's really no one kind of in between. And so I'm in that old part of the young group. And I think critically what this really means, getting right down to it, is that those folks in the first part of the distribution of the nuclear field are retiring right now, actively. And they're leaving behind really big jobs, senior level positions. And folks, 35 and younger are being asked to step up and just skip a lot of that intermediate part of a career. And that very much happened to me. So it's certainly the lens I see on the world, but I'm also seeing it across this really powerful group of youths where they're taking on really public facing strong positions in our field.
So, question for you, Katie. In my experience, there's a different view of what it means to be an advocate among those two groups. And especially, I find there's a different view of what it means to be an advocate and whether it should even occur, whether it's professional, whether it's appropriate, whether it's not even lobbying to have a title in a nuclear industry and say you like nuclear among that middle section. I happen to know that Katie has assisted behind the scenes before she was in government with some fairly crucial advocacy efforts. Illinois, not too long ago, when we were about to lose a major portion of the entire state's energy, clean or otherwise, right there outside of Chicago, and nobody knew. And anyway, let's move aside from what Katie did, because I don't want to put her on the stand that way. Just to say, have you experienced these different attitudes in what's professional or appropriate to say how much you like nuclear?
Sure, yeah. I think there are some people who take the approach that you have to stay completely objective and neutral in order to be a technical authority. I think it is entirely reasonable to be technically objective and positive and still remain a technical authority. One's integrity is not lost when one forms an opinion based on facts and then shares that opinion. I do think if you're a nuclear regulator, right, then you should stay pretty neutral, right? But in positions like mine and across our field, I think it's entirely reasonable to take everything you know technically about all the things that are great or bad about a particular technology like nuclear and decide on your own what you're going to push for your goals for the planet. And I think it's entirely professional to do so because people are looking to technical leadership and other kinds of leadership for those strongly informed opinions. And I think it's your responsibility. If you do have an opinion, you feel that you really have the information to back it up, you should really share it with the world.
I like that. And I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to put out a hypothesis. And if you don't like it, just push me off the stool and you can be the moderator. It's my hypothesis that maybe in some of this missing middle, some of the really bad pushback that I've heard others receive for being advocates while still being professionals comes from a sort of misplaced fear of the public itself, fear of the public's wrath, and that if somebody speaks up in the wrong way, they might be punished because they're above you still. Do you find that fear plays a role in pushback against being an advocate and an honest scientific professional?
I imagine that could be the case. I think having a large group of peers and counterparts around you does make you feel a little safer. And perhaps being alone in the face of questions around nuclear might be a little scary. So that missing middle might have had less confidence in standing up for themselves because they didn't have this big group that you all will have in the youth these days. But it's hard to know what drives people.
So you're saying that bimodal distribution, that camel hump of people, a lot of experienced veteran people, not many in the middle, a lot of youth, that we're benefiting if we're trying to be empathic against people who say, don't talk up about the thing you love, just use numbers. Then it's this fear of being alone and that we have the benefit of a massive group. I mean, I'm looking at some of the people in the audience who I recognize who are part of, I mean, honestly, Katie's crew, the peers coming up under your leadership as one of the highest ranked nuclear officials in the world. I was looking if Cosmin Gita was around, but he's in charge of the Romanian nuclear program and is very young for his excellent position. Well, we're all Team Katie here, and thank you so much. So that was a beautiful final statement. And finally, Katie.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in addition to, the federal government can't do what we do without advocates sort of pushing for the kinds of things we're able to fund, I would say it's true internationally. This has been a very U.S.-focused panel. This is a very international physical space. I think there are analogies in all of your governments about where the power lies to do one or another thing. And the power in, convincing your politicians to do something, in particular, elected politicians, it lies in the constituencies. And you all are the constituency. And there's no one just slightly older than you doing the work because they're all getting ready to retire, going back to my original statement. So you have to step up and be like Paris, be like Sarah, be like Eric, be like Mark.
Be like Katie. Thank you so much, Katie.